My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote.com. That's SelectQuote.com.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
This Mother's Day, treat mom to healthy, glowing skin with Osea's limited edition skincare sets. Osea has been making clean, seaweed-infused products for nearly 30 years. Their advanced eye care duo brightens and firms skin around your eyes, while the Golden Glow Body Trio nourishes and smooths skin all over. They both come in giftable boxes with savings up to $46 and free shipping for a limited time. Go to OSEAMalibu.com and use code MOM for 10% off your first order site-wide.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in today. I am thoroughly grateful for my guest today. She has been 20 plus years as a corporate executive and board director. She's been named the turnaround queen by her former colleagues and employers. She's also been considered the Iron Maiden. But if you get to know her personally, as she says, you might find out she might be a little bit of a marshmallow on the inside. She inspires, she empowers her team and clients to change mindsets and drive growth in business, leadership, and culture. She has been recognized as the 2023 Woman of Influence by the South Florida Business Journal, 2022 Top 30 Most Influential Business Leaders in Tech. I don't know what else to say about her. She has been one of the youngest chief operating officers at the age of 24. She's been a president by 35 and a CEO by 41, so, we have to give her flowers as, while she can hear them. We greatly appreciate you to be such an inspirational, person to others, and now I get to know you, so you inspire me too, as I've been listening to your shows and everything else. I present to you none other than Miss Victoria. So now, we just went over your last name, Victoria, and just that quick, my brain froze. So can you please say your name for us, please?
I can. Victoria Pelletier. And I tell everyone you need to blame my French-Canadian husband for those who struggle with pronouncing the last name.
Cool. But thank you very much for, coming on today. As I listen to some of your interviews, you've come across, even though your background sounds very established, it sounds very, you're on point with everything that you're doing, but you've also come across as someone who has had a lot of challenges along the way, so is there something that you could tell us just a little bit before we get all the way into how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to, and thanks for having me on the show. I have overcome a lot of adversity. A big mantra and life philosophy for me is about being unstoppable. Mm-hmm. And that has to do with my early years and circumstance. And so I will share it, but it actually leads to the second part, which is a little bit around my why and my motivation. Right. I actually attribute this lived experience to being what's pushed me to do more, better, and different. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I was born to a drug-addicted teenage mother who was exceptionally abusive to me. So the first many years of my life, several years, I should say, I was fortunate to be adopted at age 4, but those first several years was in and out of care because of her abuse.
Wow.
We're talking like being pushed upstairs, downstairs, carelessness that caused a cigarette in my eye, and I wore a patch for a number of months.
Wow.
But I am one of the lucky ones who was
Mm-hmm.
adopted out of that environment. In fact, the parents who raised me, they are my mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, family are those that raise you, and sometimes chosen family. And I
Right.
was chosen. My mom asked Julie, my adoptive mother, after a number of times watching me after an episode, she finally said to Julie, "We'd like to take her away and adopt her from you and give her a very different life." And so no more abuse, but the first several years of not only abuse at the hands of the person who should love and care for you the most, it created
Right.
a very scarred, fearful little girl
Mm-hmm.
who built walls around her, who chose to attempt to find love in very, different places, and, put me in some precarious positions, one of which resulted in a rape in my teenage years as well.
Wow.
And I will never blame a victim for that, at all. But I just know that I put myself in some really difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, coupled with loving parents, but lower on the socioeconomic chain. My dad is school janitor. My mom is secretary. My mom had told me, she's like, "Tori, you need to do better than us." And it was those things, Maurice, when I share that story, that's my why. I started working at a very young age, and, controlled the things I could, including my performance and how I showed up in a work environment, because I wanted to be better than my biology, that I was born into,
Right.
or the circumstance from which I was raised.
So, because of those obstacles that you had to overcome, how much more did you have to put energy into it in order to overcome those things? Because some people feel as though they can't get over those things. So, how were you able to get over it?
I think this resilience, we'll
Mm-hmm.
call it. I think it's two parts. So for me, I absolutely think there's innately in my DNA,
Mm-hmm.
as they say, fight or flight. Like,
Right.
I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. I just think that's natural. And, I am originally from Canada and hockey player. Like, you don't want to, encounter me on the ice. So I'm competitive. I'm a fighter. So I think that has helped with
Okay.
resilience when whether it's trauma or challenge or adversity comes my way.
Okay.
I want to plow through it. I'm not going to let it stop me.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it. But the other is, I think it's a little bit like a muscle too, that you have to build it. And I think when I was younger, I just compartmentalized. I didn't deal with the feelings and the emotions and
Right.
how to process some of those things. And I've learned over the years now to have a healthier way of being resilient. And that means, feel in the moment. I'm a highly emotional, person, and I will encourage people to feel it, whether it's anger or sadness, whatever the emotion is in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have a choice in terms of how you're going to move forward. And that choice for me is anchored on what's the goal or objective I have for myself. That's always rooting me in terms of where I want to get to or move forward to.
Right.
I'm also really reflective. So why do I have the feelings? Like, I used to be incredibly fearful of like rejection. And so that caused me to show up in certain ways. So I needed to be really reflective to understand that in myself. And then the next step was to model a different way of thinking, acting, and speaking. And so that combination between DNA and the kind of this, muscle that's had to be built through like this various step process is what has allowed me to be really resilient.
So, how were you able to utilize that resiliency, the tenacity, to get you to be a chief operating officer by the age of 24? Like, how did that happen?
Well, so I started working at 11 in a hair salon. And so I never had food insecurity, or my parents never were able to not clothe me, but anything extra I wanted,
Okay.
I needed to buy.
Okay.
They didn't have money we didn't go on vacations. I couldn't go on my, school graduation trip and all those sorts of things. So I started working very young. So
Okay.
I had quite a bit of work experience under me. My first leadership role was at 14. I became the assistant manager of the shoe store I worked at. So by the time I was 24, I'd actually already was into a senior
Okay.
manager role,
Okay.
and I'd been really focused on improving my own skills and performing really well.
Okay.
But it was also a stretch role, and my ability to be confident
Mm-hmm.
despite circumstance, and I attribute that back to some of that resilience that helped me get that role for sure.
Okay.
But then also in my career since then, I've been able to channel what was personal adversity or trauma and challenge into the way I show up at work. We all there's so much that is outside of our control. I've been a part of 18 mergers and acquisitions that come with significant change, restructuring. And so the ability to roll with the punches, but anchor back on the goal or objective, and it might be a new one now as a result of those transactions, has allowed me to move forward and then lead other people through the challenge.
So that goes into my next question, which is talks about relationships. So what type of relationships have you been able to cultivate over the years, especially since they call you the turnaround queen as a nickname? How do you get that type of relationship with individuals for them to even call you something like that?
Well, you referenced in the intro, my bio, Iron Maiden. So I had to pivot, I will tell you.
Right.
So from turnaround queen is a big part of that, the mergers and acquisitions, and taking distressed businesses and turning them into positive, healthy businesses and performing. That's turnaround queen. But can't do that without the people on the team.
Right,
and so Iron
right.
Maiden came in my probably a few years after that first executive role. Again, I go back to sort of my origin story and lived experience. I was afraid to be vulnerable and to be too emotional, not only because of the early years, but also I was the only female executive and I was the youngest by probably 2 decades. So I also thought that if I appeared to be too vulnerable or emotional, I might not be taken as seriously or viewed very differently.
Right.
So I made really tough business decisions and achieved business success. But in those first few years, I didn't bring everyone along with me because I think they feared me and not followed me. So I had to pivot into much more of a focus on a different kind of relationship. And it meant building real, trusted, authentic connection with people and relationships. And that meant I had to be open and transparent about my experience, around my vulnerabilities, around saying, hey, you know what? I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
We're going to figure this out together. And so building those kinds of relationships has since changed the dynamic with the people. And now I've built a really strong followership. So as I've moved companies over the years, I have a number of people who want to follow me. Now, I have to be careful because I normally have a non-solicit for a period of time and not hiring people, but I've been able to do that. And you'll see that there's some people who I've stayed connected with. And that's the other thing. I built a really, really massive network. I build a relationship because I care. I want to build a relationship with you. And I hope that it will turn into our ability to do business together. But I do it initially just truly to build a relationship. That for me that's relationship-based selling. And then the average tenure is around 2 years. So people are going to hop from company to company. Right. And ideally, if it really, it's your relationship is based in, and rooted on that real connection, then, the business transaction sort of comes along with it.
So in staying with this relationship piece, some people feel as though they may have to stay in that, I need to keep you at a distance, in order for me to grow. How would you talk to someone or encourage them to kind of let the walls down just a little, just so they can progress on, whether it's within a corporate organization or even moving their own business along? How would you encourage someone to break down the wall a little bit?
So I'll speak more as a leader, for others, and then I can talk about the dynamic between, with clients. And so as a leader, I think it's, my role is to develop my team and allow them to be not only their best versions of themselves within the workplace, but also understanding, their desire and goal or objectives. And the only way we do that is by bringing down those walls and having, conversation, and also tough conversation. There's a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor. That's been sort of my approach to operating for many, many years. Okay. And I didn't have the vernacular until her book came out. But radical candor is about being direct and transparent with others, but doing it from a place of care and compassion. For me, an extension of that also means asking the really difficult questions and trying to understand much more about a person around what drives them. And so oftentimes that means I need to go first as the leader. I need to create a safe place so that they know that psychologically they can share with me.
Right.
And they're putting trust in me because I've done that by sharing with them. So that's how I do it from a leadership perspective.
Okay.
But then when it comes to the clients or customers that I serve, it's quite honestly, it's really similar. I
Mhm.
want to understand that again, I'm here to build a relationship with you, uh, first and foremost, versus just sell you some product or service or widget.
Right.
Let let's understand. And so for me, there's certain questions that I ask them once I get to know them and who they are. And again, we've got a friendship or relationship established.
Right.
The next question for me is like, what does success look like for you? How are
Mm-hmm.
you measured? So when we're trying to understand their pain point or their strategy and then figuring out, do we have a solution for them?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to understand how that's deeply connected to their maybe career advancement. How do they need to show up at work? It might not all be about like buying for the lowest price. It
Right.
could be
Right.
to be a superstar and delivering great service or whatever. But I don't think you get to have those kind of conversations again if you haven't built this foundational level of trust.
So, how do you think that relates to the workforce of the future? Because as things are shifting, AI or whatever it is, some of this stuff is really relational still. Technology is not going to take over everything. So how do you continue to grow these relationships as the workforce changes from your perspective?
I think they focus on what I refer to as human centered or heart centered leadership has become more critical.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to have a very different communication with our teams that I think at one point the way business was operating in pre-pandemic, the
Mm-hmm.
hustle hard nation constantly and expectations for over delivery and 80-hour work weeks, like people's mindset changed. The great
Right.
rethink, the great resignation, whatever you want to call that. It's just caused lots of us as we sit and work out of our homes
Right.
to truly just rethink around what's important to us and get
Mm-hmm.
connected to purpose and values and mission. So I think it requires a very different leader to have those kind of conversations, but it also means this greater level of transparency.
Hmm.
So, with we've all heard about ChatGPT and
Yes.
generative AI is everywhere right
It
now.
is. It is.
And it passed the bar exam and it's doing all these things. So, things are going to change, but
Right.
even if you don't work for a technology company, I use air quotes. The reality
Right.
is
Right.
we all work for technology companies. We
Yeah.
use technology to enable the way we get our work done.
Right.
And so most companies have been on this journey of a digital transformation, whether it's moving from legacy hardware systems and infrastructure into the cloud
Mm-hmm.
to different technology to help us do work. The way we communicate to teams to say, yes, this is happening.
Right.
This is business strategy, and we've built a timeline of X or Y.
Hmm.
It is going to require the type of work, how the work you do, and things will slightly shift. And that means we as a team are going to invest maybe to reskill, or we're going to ask you to do different things. Being that kind of transparent and having that conversation will give some security, and build trust, and ideally then keep and retain the employees and continue to see them highly engaged despite the fact that work is changing and evolving.
Wow. See, and I'm asking you these questions because some of my own clients I asked them very similar questions, and they weren't being able, they are not able to answer those type of questions. They're not understanding relationships, and a lot of them are keeping people at a distance, and they're not understanding why their companies aren't growing. So that's why I asked you those questions because I really wanted to hear your response, and I think you put it so eloquently for me to explain that to them. But I thank you very much. I thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I really think that there are a lot of the listeners that are going to be able to grow from this too. As they're looking to grow into leadership roles. Also, because like I said, your story is very fascinating. It's very influential in the sense that at a young age, at 24, I was just happy to have a job. But I thank you very much for coming on, Victoria.
Thanks for having
And
me.
do you have anything else you would like to share to the listeners at this time?
Well, if they want to connect with me, I do have a website, which is just Victoria-Pelletier.com. I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes. No one needs to worry about the spelling. And then if they want to connect with me there on whatever other social platform they can, I do a ton of like content. I'm writing articles, constantly, and share podcasts like yours there. I do a lot of public speaking. So if they want to engage with me, that's the best place to find me.
Cool. So thank you very much. Your information will be in the information for all the podcasts, for the podcast. But before I let you go, I ask all my people that come on, my friends, my new friends, it's a would you rather question. So would you rather choose 3 doors or would you rather choose a fork in the road? Which one would you choose?
The fork in the road.
Okay.
And why? Because I can see nothing sitting behind those doors. At least a fork in a road. There's a little bit of visibility in front of me and a little bit of insight into what I think I'm what path I'm walking down.
Okay. So just to give you an idea, in the very beginning, everybody was choosing a fork in the road, and I've been asking this question for about the last year or so. And it's funny because it's been a switch. It went from fork in the road to now. For a while, it was 3 doors because people wanted more choices. Now it's dwindling back down to a fork in the road because people kind of want to have a little sneak peek of what's down the road a little bit.
Yeah,
so it's very
exactly.
interesting.
I'm very much an A-type personality and planner, so for me, fork in the road.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, Victoria, thank you very much for coming on today. All your information will be in the information for the podcast. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. For our listeners today, please be sure to tune in to all of our other shows and interviews. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.